Blog Talk Radio.
I got that right the first time, and I haven't been able to get it right since. Yeah, sounds about right. Hi, everybody. This is the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. Well, nominally, we're the movie review club, but there's not a movie out right now worth talking about, so we're going to be talking about television, because why not? We're talking about Daredevil Season 2 this evening. I'm your host, Robert Winfree, and for once, that is not my dog you're hearing bark. That's a first. Normally, it's mine. Anyway, here with me this evening, first, as always, the spiritual patriarch of the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, the mandated reporter whose mortification continues unabated as the, United States electoral process goes on. He's just getting more and more mortified, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Radulich. How you doing, Mark?
I was mortified before we started electing real estate moguls and television stars. Okay, I've been mortified. I was mortified before you were even born, kid. I was born mortified. But I'm doing really good.
We also just missed Mark's parents, who no doubt would have corroborated that statement.
You actually didn't miss my parents. My father is currently looking for my son's shoes.
Stop buying the kid 20 damn pairs of shoes, Mark.
And that would be our special guest for the evening.
That's on you who doesn't get the point to look for shoes before you leave the house.
They're all at your mother.
No, they are not. There are no shoes at my mother's. They're all hidden around the house.
Then why can't you?
Oh, I want to put a gun in my mouth.
Hi, Pat. How you doing?
In the back of his car.
Fine up until about 30 seconds ago when we got to hear about the damn kids' shoes all over the damn place.
Dude, I have 2 kids and a husband. There's shoes every goddamn place.
I didn't even have shoes as a kid. I didn't even have shoes. I don't know what you guys are whining about.
And yes, and you went to school.
I had one pair. I had one friggin' pair of British Knights from ages like 4 to 14. They don't even make British Knights anymore, and I still have them.
Jonas has?
Jonas probably has 6 pairs of shoes, and 4 of them are pairs of shoes that Mark has gone and bought at Stride Rite at $60 a pop because they had to have a superhero on them.
That's not true. There's only been 2 pairs that I bought at Stride Rite. One was Jake, and that was many months ago when his feet were smaller.
So speaking of superheroes, we were talking Daredevil.
That's the theory here, at any rate. Marvel's Daredevil Season 2 came out last week or so. I forget March 20, about a week ago. I don't care for dates. They don't mean a whole lot to me. And since we reviewed the first season, basically episode by episode here, Gavin Napier hosted a review series that looked at them in 3-episode blocks, except for the last one, which was 4 episodes. those are in the archives of the Radulich and Broadcasting Network if you would like to go back and listen to us. It's Gavin and like a rotating panel of guests. I'm on the second episode of that show, and I believe the last one as well. So you can feel free to go back and listen to any of those if you want to preface this. But season 2 came along, and because we are all a little bit tired of dragging these things out, providing more and more opportunities for the entropy of the universe to provide obstacles for them being completed, now we just do these in one shot. In this instance, the entity was Mark's family.
Well, folks, this is the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, and you just got a full dose of the Radulich on your cheek.
Yeah, we apologize, and that's probably going to happen again. All right. Now, Pat, I want to start with you here, just to kind of preface this season. You and I fell into this camp about the first season of Daredevil where moments of greatness, but on the whole, and certainly the final couple of episodes, they fell a little bit flat, especially given how strong the series started. So I'm curious what kind of brought you into watching the second season. I mean, especially after the first one ended with more of a whimper than a bang.
This is going to be part of a greater, not necessarily cinematic universe, but they're looking to branch these shows together in a way that's almost going to create a Netflix answer to the Avengers series of films, where we had all these, intros, and then we got this great group together and the dynamic and a huge movie event that had never been done before. This is a smaller scale version of that with different superheroes, more street level, and it's kind of an in-between Avengers and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. type thing with some interesting characters. Now, even though I was completely underwhelmed by the end of the first season of Daredevil, and I despised Jessica Jones, I wanted to give it a fair shake. So I said, I'm going to try season 2. They're introducing new characters that interest me, like the Punisher, like Elektra, and I felt like there was a chance we could get something good out of this.
All right, Mark, before we get into this show proper, what were your kind of expectations coming into this season? How did you – because I don't think you and I didn't talk at length about season 1 at all. So how did you kind of come into this from a momentum or an expectation standpoint?
I was very excited about Daredevil. Just as an aside, I wanted to watch it the Friday that it debuted, and I had to work, and then I say, well, I'm going to, as soon as I get home, then I'm just not going to be available as a parent. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get started with this thing. And my wife pulled a fast one on me, and she says, no, we're having family time. You have to watch a family movie. So watching of Shrek later, after the kids went to bed and the wife finally said, all right, we're done now. Now you can go watch Daredevil. I finally got to get into the first 3 episodes. And my expectations were high. I really liked the first season, not as much as I liked Jessica Jones. I actually preferred Jessica Jones to the first season of Daredevil. But I thought, this can only get better. With the additions of the Punisher and Elektra, 2 characters that I'm interested in, I thought, okay, now that they've sort of got the first season jitters out of the way, and they know they have a hit on their hands and a strong audience, they might take some chances here. So I was excited for what was ahead.
Man, am I in the minority when it comes to being excited about Elektra? Because the character just has never interested me. Any medium, nothing. I don't care. I don't know.
I mean,
I guess that's just me.
When the character's done well, she's very interesting. There was a point in time where she was the star of her own book in the late 90s, and it was actually well written and constructed. It gave her some depth, more so than just this girl from Matt Murdock's past written by Frank Miller to be edgy. And so she's had moments where she's been an interesting character in her own right, independent of Daredevil. So when she has a strong character to lean on, I was always curious to see the dynamic and how it would play out. And, if your only exposure to her was through the Daredevil film and the spin-off, and I understand the lack of excitement, but there's good Elektra stories out there. They're just really, really hard to find in comparison to the bad ones.
Fair enough. All right. One of my major criticisms of Daredevil as a series so far, now that there's 2 seasons, I feel there's some demonstrable categorical evidence to this. When they get into their individual arcs, there are arcs within each series that are 3 to 4 episodes long. And when they're within that arc, it's a spectacular show. It's the transitional material that they really kind of struggle with, I feel. Case in point, the first 4 episodes of season 2 I find to be almost above reproach. They are fundamentally spectacular. The first episode, ends with Daredevil getting shot in the head by the Punisher. There's a fight scene in episode 3 that deserves its own separate conversation, and then episode 4 ends with Frank Castle being arrested. And it almost feels like if you just cut the last 5 seconds off of that episode when Matt pulls a knife on Elektra, who's broke into his apartment, you've got a 4-episode arc that is a 4-episode miniseries that is almost above reproach. Mark, I mean, they said the first season set a very high standard with those first 3 episodes, and this one follows suit. And I'm just kind of curious, those first 4, I know you're a little bit down on episode 4, especially compared to the others, but I mean, that's a darn near perfect, 4-episode arc of television.
I really struggled because I watched the first 3 episodes before I finally had to go to bed because I'd work the next morning. And I went to bed thinking, if this is where they are in episode 3, I don't know where the rest of the season is going. I felt like, and this isn't a complaint per se, is an observation. I was like, okay, things that they should have been building towards at the end of the season happened in the first 3 episodes. And I'm like, well, talk about cutting right to the chase. At least they didn't leave you waiting in this one. But what are they going to do now? And I was a little leery about where the rest of the season was going. When I know that when I went to bed, like I said, and by that point, they hadn't caught the Punisher. That doesn't happen until episode 4. Spoilers. And I was thinking, Jesus, 4 episodes in, they've already caught the Punisher. I'm wondering if he's done here, and we're going to get now 9 episodes of Elektra, in which case I would have put my head through the wall.
It's not quite that bad. Pat, I think you mentioned online, one of the group chats that we have, that type of thing, that you said that should have been done after those first 4 episodes. They should have just done those 4, done it self-contained, and call it a day, right?
If they had done that, I would have virtually no complaints about any of the series whatsoever, because it was so well structured, put together, run through, and executed so well that it would have left you really wanting more, and not even with a teaser of something else to come, which they include at the end of episode 4 when Matt gets home and turns around and catches the blade and sees it's Elektra, and that's supposed to make you want more of that, even though they've given you no real intro to her, and you'd kind of only know her if you had regarded the previous movies with any kind of memory or the comic books. And a lot of the audience into this Netflix series have never read a Daredevil comic in their life, so they're kind of like, well, who's this girl? And not really in a major oh, who's this? But kind of just curiosity, like, oh, who's this? After you rode the roller coaster with the Punisher and Daredevil, and these diametrically opposite personalities birthed very much out of the same circumstances.
All right. What comes after? I want to briefly go through, I think, some of the major arcs that this season takes, and then we can talk about some of the specifics, because there's a lot of praiseworthy stuff, and there's plenty of stuff that warrants criticism. Episode 5 is completely... It's more flashback than contemporary. It's a lot of introducing Elektra as... And I suppose this is part of my gripe with this version of the character. For most of her introduction and the vast majority of her character life in this show, she comes across to me as just that crazy ex-girlfriend you never quite got over all the way back in college. And that's how she's presented.
Are you saying that exactly how she's presented?
Well, yeah, but... okay, let me rephrase. That's the only way I feel she's presented. And the only time we get any brief insight into her as a character, it is rushed at like the very end. It's the 12th or 13th episode that we actually get something to do with her.
Can I offer a counter to that? I think she is, for lack of a better word here, I think she is the mix. She is temptation. She is, I mean, if you look at where Foggy, Karen, and Matt are at the beginning of this season and where they are attempting to go together as a trio, what she represents to Matt is, you know, the idea of, and they dealt with this a lot in Spider-Man 2, not Spider-Man 2, like I'm TOO, in terms of the black costume, and I'm talking about the comic books here exclusively, where you have your regular life, you know, where you're trying to go to school or work or take care of your family, your loved ones or whatever, but then there's your superhero life, and there's a part of you that just wants to throw it all away and be that superhero all the time. You know, with Spider-Man, the black costume sort of gave him that out because, you know, it was bonding to him and he wanted to be in it all the time, that sort of thing. In the case of this television series, Elektra represents that for Matt. This is because you've got all these other people who he has to hide his identity from or is constantly lobbying against him being Daredevil in the first place. And she's saying, no. Give up being Matt Murdock. Be Daredevil all the time. And I feel like that's what she represents as a character. That's, I feel like, who she is as a character. And as far as this season, she may grow into something else. That's certainly the allusion at the very end with her dealing with the hand. But I think for the breadth of this season, she is walking, talking, sex kitten temptation.
All right. Episode 6, Regrets Only, is similarly kind of bogged down by just screwing around with Elektra, while the much more interesting story I feel that is emerging at this point is, you know, Frank Castle was captured alive. Where do we go from here? And while Matt is, you know, screwing around with Elektra and theoretically the Yakuza, his trial and the relationship with the district attorney's office and all that is personally much more interesting. Episode 7 starts his trial, which creates a really interesting arc through 7, 8, and 9. 7 begins his trial. 8, they have come up with a way to... Nelson and Murdoch have come up with a legal strategy that will get him, if not acquit him of charges, because that's highly unlikely, at least get him a reduced sentence down from the 37 counts of first-degree murder he's charged with. He tanks it so that he can go meet Wilson Fisk in prison. Fisk sets him up to meet one of the men who set up the ambush that killed his family. That was part of that whole thing. There's a glorious fight sequence in episode 9 where Frank Castle kills a lot of people in prison. Really, really well shot. And I want to talk extensively about this version of The Punisher because they finally got it right in a lot of ways.
They've always gotten it right.
Yeah, there's always been aspects of him that they've gotten right. There's one that I feel is integral to the character that kind of comes through here that I think has been absent from other adaptations. Unfortunately, episode 9 ends with the reemergence of Nobu, who theoretically died in season 1, but now the Hand have discovered a way to be immortal. which Stick brings up when he reemerges into this show. 10. I'm trying to remember exactly what happens in. 10's another transitional episode where Elektra decides to kind of go away from being with Stick to be with Matt. The law firm starts imploding. The DA dies after Castle escapes prison at the end of the previous episode. 11, 12, and 13 are another kind of self-contained story. Frank Castle's looking to find the people. There's an enigmatic character known as the Blacksmith who was kind of the mastermind behind the drug deal that went south and got his family killed and him shot in the head. So while he's doing that, we discover that in episode 12, we discover that Elektra is this black sky that the Hand has been searching for and is going to lead them to victory over the Earth, and I don't know. It's rather silly. Elektra decides not to go with the Hand. She and Stick and Daredevil escape. That sets up the final episode where, in an effort to lure out Daredevil, the Hand kidnaps everyone he's ever rescued. He shows up with Elektra, saves those people. The whole thing's a trap. There's a glorious fight sequence on the roof of this building. Frank Castle shows up at the last minute to provide sniper support for Daredevil as he takes out Nobu. Stick gets to decapitate Nobu. And we end with a couple of disparate elements. You have Matt revealing his identity as Daredevil to his love interest, Karen Page. You have Elektra being buried after she dies, saving Daredevil from Nobu. You have the Punisher being set on his course as he takes a CD with the word Micro on it. Again, a clear reference to the character of Microchip, who is one of the Punisher's armorers. And the Hand has stolen Elektra's body and is planning to revive her in this giant jar they've been lugging around for half a dozen episodes. All right. I got to get this out of the way. I feel that the mystical stuff they try to put into this show, I don't think they have a handle on it. I don't think there's a concise way to get that integrated into the reality-based, gritty street-level stuff that the rest of the show is. And the show is much better when it leaves aside the, oh no, there's no such thing as death, and there's this black sky, and oh look, there's, a 40-story hole under this building that is never adequately explained. All of that it feels like such a detraction from when the show is at its best. I mean, Pat, I know already that you feel similarly to how I do about that, but, I mean, what's your take specifically on this?
I mean, here's the thing. The show has an identity crisis when it does this stuff, where the initial 4 episodes that we talked about, very street, very real, very visceral, and then they start mixing in these elements of mystic and magic and another kind of a element to the world. And the problem is all these fantastical elements not only kind of come out of left field, but even when they're talked about, there's no explanation or depth given to them at all. And I can understand if you're not going to go all the way with it and use them as proper plot devices to really intrigue people, that you don't want to get too far into them. You still have to give people something that makes them at least interested in it, rather than just spinning their wheels and wondering, why is this here? And that's what they failed to do. They started using them as plot devices, but then would pull back on it or go half-heartedly into it. And then, furthermore, didn't even explain what these mystical elements are. How have they found immortality? Oh, well, they're talking about the black sky. Well, what's the black sky? Well, the black sky is Elektra. Okay, explain. Nope, not going to do that. And all these weird elements thrown into there make no sense. They're disjointed. They take away from, to me, what's really the appeal of Daredevil to people is that it's not your safe PG superhero show. It's a street, violent, hardcore, gritty, dark, bleak, very Batman-esque type show without the restraints of being as well known and characterized as Batman and having a different type of character involved in it.
Yeah, Mark, I seem to recall you referring to the mystical elements in this season as just boring. Not necessarily that you object to their existence, but that you dislike the execution.
Yeah, I have most of what I have to say pretty much mirrors what Pat says, so I'm not going to just repeat it other than to say Pat's dead on 100%. But the other thing is, it's never, at least to me, and now if I say something and you guys say no, this happened, and go ahead and do it, because I will tell you I was sick while watching this thing, and I may have passed out at times. But from what I remember, and I watched a few things back, if I thought I missed something, I don't ever remember them adequately explaining what it is the Hand wants. I know they want Black Sky, and they don't tell you what Black Sky is, except that it's Elektra, except that it isn't, but it is, which makes no sense to me. Or what it is that but that's okay. So the Hand wants Black Sky to do what? And that I don't ever get an answer to. And that's when I started to lose interest in the whole thing, because when you don't give the bad guys a mission statement, something that they're after, is it a MacGuffin? Are they trying to take over the world? Are they trying to kill Daredevil? I don't understand what they're trying to do, and it just becomes a video game where it's a video game that I can't play. And I'm just watching, the hero that you're supposed to use battle an infinite amount of bad guys. Which is vastly different from what you saw in season 1, where you knew who the bad guys were, you knew why Daredevil was fighting them, and it wasn't endless. Here, with the constant repetition of the ninjas, after a while, I just started to tune out. And maybe that's why I missed something, but I got so bored because there were never any stakes to me. I never understood what it was Daredevil was fighting for, other than to stay alive, which after a while got boring.
They never adequately explain it. It's nebulous. It's the Hand is an ancient Japanese organization, hence the ninjas, and they discovered the secret of immortality, which is also never expounded upon. And
is that the base that they put Elektra in? Is that what that is?
I don't know. I mean, I can extrapolate based on knowledge I have independent of the series.
No,
but
don't. But don't do that, because that's shitty television writing then.
Yeah.
It is. It's never explained. It's a vessel that they were draining blood into that had some random elements that science couldn't necessarily explain at the moment, and we end with Elektra being locked into it. That's it. It is not adequately explained.
I don't even know why they're draining the blood. See,
no,
I could surmise
they never tell you
that. I could surmise that this thing is magical, but it takes the blood of children in order to bring someone back to life. Except I'm not writing this fucking thing, and no one said that specifically, or even in a subtle way. So I'm now just imagining things in place of any kind of information that tells me where this plot's going.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
That's shitty writing.
I don't disagree.
I hate to call Daredevil shitty, but
no, you don't, and nor should you.
But because I want to say positive things about it. Unfortunately, I preferred season 1 to this, and frankly, when it came to this season, the only things I liked about it were anything having to do with the Punisher, and my favorite episode of all is the one where he's in prison with the Kingpin. That's the most entertaining thing of the entire season to me.
Mark, is your favorite part the tip of the hat to the original 4-issue Punisher miniseries, where he just beats the hell out of everybody who runs at him in the prison?
I'd love that. Well, that is, everyone sort of jerks off over the hallway scene, And look, I'm not going to be a jerk about it. I thought it was great too. But that was like the high watermark for staged violence in the first season. This season, I was saying this before we started the show tonight, the most memorable scene, exchange, bit of dialogue, whatever, in all of season 2 is that prison hallway fight scene. It's the greatest thing I've seen in the entire season. Loved every minute of it.
And when I mentioned before that I thought they finally got the Punisher right in this show in a lot of ways, I think there's an underlying truth to Frank Castle that gets overlooked whenever they have to make a movie about it. Frank Castle, the Punisher, is not a hero. And I understand that if you're marketing to a mass audience, then you have to do, and here's Thomas Jane moping for 80 minutes while John Travolta chews scenery like he's, an Ethiopian famine victim. I mean, I understand. It's just wrong. He's not a hero. He is simply not quite as bad as the people he kills.
I was going to say, he's a force of nature. He is unrelenting vengeance.
Yeah, Gavin Napier describes him as a hate machine, which I think is probably the most accurate descriptor of Frank Castle there is.
He's a hate machine driven by a death wish.
Yeah. No, that's relatively accurate. And every other time they've adapted the Punisher into a movie property, that's one of the things they miss. I mean, Dolph Lundgren tries his hardest, and God bless him for trying. That movie is just incredibly dated. The Thomas Jane version of the Punisher is exceptionally poorly written. I mean, Thomas Jane does a fine job as the character, but the movie is written poorly. And Punisher Warzone decided to combine the filming techniques of some of the worst entries into the Saw franchise with bad CGI for violence. I don't think they've ever Sorry, what was that?
I think the problem they've made with the Punisher in previous installments was an attempt to make him a sympathetic hero instead of just letting him be who he is and let the audience come to them as they will, or not, or reject him out of hand, but just let him. People obviously like the Punisher. They like the idea of somebody who says that, these heroes who don't kill are a half measure. That literally comes right from season 2. So they're going to take the law into their own hands, and they're going to end the violence. I talked on source material on Monday. That's the point Superman comes to after Joker tricks him into killing Lois. That that's it. We just have to start killing these people, or we're never going to have any peace. And the Daredevil allows him to be just that. That unrelenting spirit of vengeance, not Ghost Rider, that makes no apologies for what he is and isn't attempting to sway you to his side. He doesn't give a shit. That's the beauty of it. The rain does not care if you don't like it. Okay? The hurricane isn't interested in your opinion of the hurricane. And neither is Frank Castle. Frank Castle is, again, just this force of nature existing, doing what God intended him to do. And if you don't like it, that's your problem. But people love it. And this season gave everyone space to just love it and embrace it and appreciate Frank Castle for what he is across the board. And the movies don't do that. The movies try to make him into Batman or some shit, and it doesn't work.
The other thing I wanted to say, John Bernthal, who plays Frank Castle in this series, I don't think they've ever miscast the role of Frank Castle. Again, Dolph Lundgren at that time was a great physical presence. Thomas Jane does an adequate job. I think it's Ray Winstone who does him in Punisher Warzone.
Yep.
Big enough, tough enough, has the cinematic presence. But I don't think they could have cast this version of the Punisher any more perfectly than they did. John Bernthal does this, does Dangerously Unhinged perfectly. This is a guy who, even when he's sitting there talking with you, necessarily engaged, you feel that hurricane just underneath the surface. Like, if the wrong, a butterfly flaps its wings one too many times, all of a sudden he's going to come unglued, and everyone and everything around him is about to be destroyed. I think it was Benjamin Cologne who mentioned that people have won Emmys for a lot less than what John Bernthal does, especially over those first four episodes of this season. I mean,
Look,
he is
if we can nominate anyone from the cast of Orange is the New Black, which I love, by the way, for an Emmy. I know you don't. For an Emmy, they can certainly nominate John Bernthal for his portrayal of the Punisher.
Well, they snubbed D'Onofrio for season 1, so I don't have a whole lot of hope.
I'm just saying they can. I'm putting it out there into the world.
Well, of course they can, but they won't. But Mark, I mean, you're an empathetic person, part of your personality makeup. So I'm curious for you, the scene at the end of episode 4 when he and Daredevil are in that cemetery and he's finally becomes a bit of a character in the sense of depth, because while he and Matt have a prolonged conversation, season 3 or episode 3, jeez. I think I could remember the difference between seasons and episodes, everybody. But I think it's episode 3 when he and Daredevil are on that roof together for the vast majority of the episode. But when he actually gives you a glimpse into his humanity as he's, sitting there against that tombstone, just, nah, I'm done. We're just going to hang out here for a little bit. I mean, it's one thing to be, a little bit crazy and to have the physical presence, which Bernthal does adequately. But the ability to remind you that, yes, there is all this, there is all of that, but there is still that little bit of humanity inside of him. And this was just, a regular guy at one point. I mean, I don't know about you, but given that you're an empathetic person, I assume that got to you a little bit, because it got to me.
To be perfectly honest with you, number one, I thought it went way too long. And that is a symptom that follows through the entire season of Daredevil. There's a series of speeches that are repetitive and are repeated through multiple episodes to the point where at the end of it, you're just like, I don't even care anymore. So then don't fucking be Matt Murdock. I just don't care. And individually, the speeches themselves go too long. I don't know where the editors went on this show. They must have gone on strike. But there came a point where I'm watching this going, did anyone go back and look at the dailies and go, maybe some of this needs to be cut? And I'm not one who says you have to have action in every, part of a thing. I talked to you guys offline about how I enjoy The People versus OJ. Not an action series, folks. It's a lot of dialogue.
Not a very good series either.
Shut up. It's a very dialogue-driven courtroom drama. And
you know the ending. Who cares?
Stop it. Shut up. Shut up.
Is John Travolta playing Robert Shapiro really that fun for you that you would sit through that?
Yes, it's one of the highlights of this show. In any case, the point that I was trying to make, you idiots, is that the dialogue is snappy enough and it moves the plot along so that you don't get bored. And the problem I have with Punisher's speech, and it would be a reoccurring issue throughout season 2, is I kept getting bored with these prolonged speeches.
There's certainly a few that become verbose, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to highlight that one, because that's the one that I personally feel doesn't go that way. I mean, it's a long sequence. It's not short, but it's not boring. I mean, look, Stick talking ad nauseum about oh, this is what you were born for, I trained you for this, or Elektra going on and on and on and on and on. Foggy and Matt having the same argument, every other episode.
Ugh.
That gets tiring. But
Foggy is a nagging woman.
Yes. But, Pat, do you see what I mean about that being, Bernthal being able to kind of counterbalance on those moments when it's necessary to keep this version of Castle from becoming utterly unsympathetic?
Yeah, and I will agree with Mark that I think that kind of stuff has gone on too long in the show. But at the same time, you have to have those slightly humanizing moments with the Punisher, or else you're going to have a character who's gone from where people perceive him prior to this, as a lot of people are familiar with that character. He just becomes another murderous psychopath without any real reason to be interested in him any more so than any other one. So they need that. They needed those moments in there. Now, would it have played better to me if I didn't get so much more of what Mark brought up earlier as far as Matt and Foggy having the same argument, Stick rambling, all that stuff? Probably. But I still think it played just fine.
Yeah, it suffers in hindsight.
Hang on, just to be clear, I absolutely 100% agree with Pat. You have to have those humanizing moments with Frank, but there were better ones, I thought, throughout the series. A lot of his interactions with, I'll tell you what my favorite interaction was that humanized him for me, and that's when they're trying to convince him to allow Murdoch and Nelson and Murdoch to represent him, and he kicks everybody out of the room and he's just talking with Karen.
I have to go further with it, and when they're trying to get him to use PTSD as a defense, and he immediately gets angry and pissed and starts saying, there are guys who are really suffering from this, and doing that to them is an insult because I don't have that, and I will not do that. And I was like, okay, that's a little bit better.
Yes, I agree. A lot of that stuff to me, and it's short and it's snappy and it gets right to the point, and it tells you that he, underneath it all, is a good person with a good heart. He's just been abused in all kinds of ways, through the doggedness of war to having his family murdered in front of him. He's been he's a tortured soul, and that's all well and good. But underneath it all is this heart of gold, and those are the moments you find it. And I would much prefer those moments of humanity to long, ongoing, rambling, mumbled. I mean, people talk about that was such a greatly delivered monologue. I thought he was gonna break into Smells Like Teen Spirit. He had so many fucking marbles in his mouth. And again, maybe that's me hallucinating from being sick all weekend. But by about 5 minutes into that, I was like, seriously, clear your fucking throat, or I have to turn the volume all the way up on my television.
I didn't have that particular issue with it.
Oh, just and they killed my family.
That's actually timely because we'll be profiling Bobby Eaton on this coming edition of the Bunkhouse Stampede Radio.
You're welcome.
I imagine that will get reused. All right. There's a couple of things I want to talk about specifically. I talked about John Bernthal, just great job with that character. I appreciate the fact that he knows how to hold a weapon. This is something I've talked about in the past.
Hang on. Let me give you a formal introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Robert Winfree explains how things work. Go ahead, Robert.
This is not about how things work. This is just about there are certain actors who, when you see them holding the prop guns or they're loaded with blanks and they're involved in that kind of scene, if you've ever been involved with firearms to any degree, and I have, you can tell who knows what they're doing with how to hold them, how to run with them, how to shoulder the weapon properly, things of that nature. You can tell the guys who actually know how to do it and the guys who are doing it purely for the scene, who don't really know what they're doing. Now, granted, there's a few instances here of taking dramatic license. You don't snipe from a standing position as the least stable position. But, again, I'll overlook that for the sake of dramatic purposes because really who else is going to care about it? But the man knows how to hold an assault rifle, and I appreciate that. I got to say this. Their version of Elektra, that character felt like an 800-pound anchor tied around the narrative of this story.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
I could not stand her. I was happy when she died. Then I remembered, no, wait, they have to bring her back.
Okay, can I ask you a couple of questions about that?
Go ahead.
Did you not like the actress? Did you feel like a better actress could have handled the exact same part better?
No. This is their version of the character. The actress is fine.
Okay, so you didn't like the way they used the character.
Yeah.
Sex, Kid, and Temptation doesn't do it for you?
It's so one note. It's just her showing up every 40 minutes going, oh, come on, Matthew. You really want to beat people and then slice their throats. And you've just got to admit it to yourself. And then the world will be full of rainbows and kittens that we can eviscerate.
I feel like the writers, in order to get ready to prepare to bring in Elektra, only read the Man Without Fear miniseries that takes place just prior to Matt officially becoming Daredevil. Because in that book, he meets Elektra in college, is infatuated with her, and he can't explain why. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, they're leaping rooftops naked and doing weird stuff like that. And I feel like that's the only Elektra they ever read, because that's really all she is here for the most part. And it's just kind of – Rob had it right. She's the – and again, that is what she actually is in the story. She is the crazy college girlfriend that he never got over, that for whatever reason, that's the one that can that can get to him enough to let certain inhibitions down and just do whatever he's going to do. The problem is it doesn't fit into the story in an interesting way at any frigging point.
Well, it's repetitive. You can get away with it, maybe once or twice.
And not for a whole episode.
And not for a whole episode, and not 6 episodes in succession. If after a while she started to become Lucy. Ricky, will you take me to the club, Ricky? It's like, oh God, shut up, Elektra.
Yeah, for as much as I don't care for Stick as a character, I understand why he's there. I was really hoping he'd just kill her. Just get this over with.
I have so little use for Stick.
I'm with you.
He was in one episode, as I recall, in season 1, and that was one episode plenty.
Well, he's just a single-minded, old warhorse bastard. I mean, that's the sum total of his character.
But he explains things like Grandpa. He never gets to a point. And I'm talking about Grandpa Abe Simpson, okay? That Grandpa.
I thought you meant any grandpa in general because it fits.
I mean, the Stick explaining something reminds me of Abraham Simpson. It's just like, Maddie, the Hand are a group of ninjas. Ninjas wear black. Black is the color that the priests wear. Priests touch little boys. And that's why the Golden Girls got canceled. Not enough sex. And you're going, what the fuck did he just say? Where did any of that come from?
It may have just been me, but did you have to constantly hear over and over again the same explanation from Stick, like about the same thing? Like, I can't remember how many times they had to explain about how Matt can't pick up on the heartbeat of the Hand ninjas, but he can pick up on their weapons.
Yeah.
How many friggin' times did we need to hear that? And then he constantly reminds them while he's fighting them.
Because apparently Matt took too many blows to the head this season and now has no short-term memory.
And I would have been happy if they'd at least made that joke. Like, So you got to start picking up on their breath. Yeah, you told me last time. I don't have CTE yet, old man.
I think that's the fundamental flaw, the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. That's the fundamental flaw of season 2, is that they found a niche for certain things. They found an effect and then just kept doing it. You know, it's like little plucky duck at the toilet bowl. You know, he flushes it once, the water goes down the hole, and he's got to keep doing it because it's a fun thing to do. Instead of doing something different with these characters, or was like, no, we found a gimmick that works. Just keep doing that thing for the next 10 episodes.
Yeah, there's a great deal of repetition here. All right, I have 2 other things, then I'm gonna get you guys to talk about what you really feel is necessary, both positive and negative. I gotta say, I was so happy that they brought back Wilson Fisk.
You said it,
his presence is so missed throughout this season. The lack of an appropriate villain hurts this season a great deal. And him coming back, even for just, the 3 or so episodes that he does, is pretty awesome. He also gets to beat up both the Punisher and Matt Murdock very briefly. D'Onofrio's ability to just hit the writers and him as an actor, they have such a great grasp of their version of that character. It's always awesome to see him. Mark, you mentioned it. I'll talk briefly. There's a scene in the episode 7 Minutes in Heaven when an entire cell block seems to come after Frank Castle in prison, and he just violently murders them all.
It's so good.
I love that scene because it's readable. You know what's going on. It's well shot, and it still maintains a bit of that claustrophobic sense of, no, this is a very enclosed space that he's engaged in combat in.
Okay, can we talk about that for a second? Why was this
go ahead.
entire season, except for that one episode, shot in the dark? And I don't mean like shot at night. I mean they didn't use lights on the set. Okay, they just showed up with cameras and were like, all right, lights, no, camera, yes, action. Where am I? That's how this whole season goes, except for that one episode. Everything is shot in the fucking dark. You can't tell what's going on half the time, and there's a lot of punching and kicking sounds.
I don't agree with that entirely. I thought there were plenty of other readable sequences. However, I understand your general point. From a color palette perspective, I think they aired a bit too dark this season.
It was
as a general
rule. Top club.
Wait, you guys are saying this was too dark, but you're going to defend sepia tones tomorrow night?
Shut up, you.
Again, Mark's reacting to that a lot more than I was. I noted it.
I'm reacting to it because when I watch a television show, I'd like to actually know what's happening instead of looking what looks, it's like the old polar bear in a snowstorm kind of a thing. It's like this was just black on black on black. I'm like,
didn't you ever think, Mark, that they're trying to provide you the perspective of Matt so that you'd get into the character?
If that's really your argument, that's fine, but no, it hadn't occurred to me.
I actually literally just came up with that on the fly because it's terrible. Like I'm legit trying to think how are they what's their defense for this? I guess Daredevil's blind. They want to make you blind to sympathize with him, maybe, instead of giving him a 90-minute monologue like Frank Castle.
Well, it's like dark and gritty. It's like, okay, we have to make everything dark and gritty. That has to also be literal. So everything needs to be pitch fucking black and and absolutely unintelligible.
See, there are sequences where I agree with that. There's plenty of others where I don't. All right, the last thing I think I want to touch on briefly, and everyone else has talked about it, and I'm just going to add praise because it deserves to be mentioned. There's a long-form, single-shot fight sequence from a roof down a flight of stairs and out of a building in episode 3 that I just could not get enough of. I just loved that whole sequence. And I mentioned this before. There's a few movies that you can tell, if you've studied film, there's a few movies that you can tell the guys who do this show have studied and don't mind either paying homage to or improving on or taking inspiration from it, however they go at it.
Just say ripping off.
Well, some of it is, some of it isn't. And one of them is pretty clearly Old Boy, the original South Korea, not that dreck that Spike Lee put together. And there's a very famous hallway fight sequence in that movie that is presented as a single shot. And I mean, I know there's not. I know they had to. There's multiple takes, but there's no angles cutting. It's presented as one shot, and it's great. It's a great fight sequence. It's devoid of CGI with the exception of the knife that gets stuck in the character's back at one point. Everything else is just guys hitting each other, basically. It's great. They did an homage to it in the second episode of season 1 of Daredevil. The one they have here in episode 3 is, I think, the best of those three. It's from presentation to execution, the fight choreography, all of it. I just absolutely loved the way that whole thing was presented and came off. Easily one of my 3 highlights of this entire season was that whole sequence. Oh, I do have one somewhat random question for you guys. What is Hollywood's obsession with trying to make being caught in the rain together some kind of romantic moment?
Robert, have you never been caught in the rain in a romantic moment?
No.
I can't adequately explain it then. It's one of those things, and this is where you got on me a little bit offline when we were talking, where I had said that the one thing this series didn't do better than the Affleck-Garner movie is that rain scene. And I enjoyed the rain scene in the first one because they actually, tied it into his senses where because of the rain hitting and him being able to sense every drop, it actually does give him a vision and a way to see things. Here they didn't explain it. They just did the Spider-Man route of they're in the rain and such. But if you've never been caught in the rain with somebody that you're feeling somewhat emotionally attached to romantically, go ahead and try it sometime. Pretend you don't know what the weather's going to be like and go out for a walk and see a movie and don't take the train, don't take a cab, just walk and, all of a sudden magically get caught in the rain. You'll laugh, you'll feel stupid and giddy. I can't explain it. It's magic.
All right.
It's like the hand. I can't explain it.
No, I every time I see that on, film or television, I just kind of ugh. I've never quite understood the pseudo-obsession with romanticizing that, but that's why I asked you guys. Mark, you're married. Pat, you date. I'm neither at the moment, so I need a human perspective to complement my robot brain for this.
I want you to know when you say stuff like that, I have to fight every fiber of my being to stop to call you Sheldon.
I appreciate you fighting that urge, because then I might have to go to Florida just to hit you.
Just already open the door, punch me, and yell, "Not funny."
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I like you, Mr. Winfree, and that's why I don't do that. But you don't make it easy.
Sorry. Look, you're not the first person who knows me who has made that comparison.
Okay, let's move on.
All right. I think that's all I've got for this. As far as big positives or negatives, I've talked about the negatives.
Can we talk about the big, hairy, fishy-smelling vagina that is Foggy Nelson?
Oh,
if you'd like to.
Pat, you moaned there. What's your issue?
Because here's the thing, is he annoying? Absolutely. Does he ride Matt like Adrian rides Rocky in those movies? Absolutely. But he's necessary.
Okay, I'm not saying lose him from the show, but a vagina is a vagina. Do I think we should get rid of vaginas? No, they serve a great utility of purposes.
I would hope not, because there are vaginas, there are assholes, and there are dicks. And vaginas don't like dicks because dicks fuck vaginas. Assholes don't like dicks either because dicks fuck assholes. So while the vaginas may not like the dicks, the assholes just shit all over everything, Mark. And you know what? Maybe dicks do fuck vaginas, but guess what? Dicks also fuck assholes.
Very good, Pat.
With that stirring bit of social commentary out of the way.
Do you know where he got that from, Winfree?
No. Otherwise, I would have referenced it.
please go watch Team America: World Police immediately, Robert.
Yeah.
No, I find neither. Look, Trey Stone, those two. No, I don't find them amusing. Watching anything they do is like physically painful on the level of me watching Kevin Smith movies.
You'll enjoy what they do with celebrities in this movie. I promise.
Even if you're not a huge fan of South Park, Team America, World Police, America, fuck yeah, is very, very funny. Very, very droll. In any case, back to Foggy. Look, I'm not saying he's unnecessary, and he has some interesting moments. I think as a character, he tweaks my nipples because he's this. He doesn't have a lot of self-confidence. He's constantly, he's like that, like, whiny fag, of a friend. If you're a girl, you have this whiny fag emo friend. You're just like, I don't know. And you're always having to dump so much energy into building up this person's confidence. And it's like, okay, but he has some wins in this episode. His opening statement, where at the end of it, Castle's like, that was a big hefty slice of bullshit. But like he shows himself over and over again to be a competent lawyer, and yet he falls back going, yeah, I don't know, I have to get Matt, I need Matt, shut up. What? He is so codependent, it makes me want to throw shit at television. I hate it. And then there's Karen, who Karen was funny this season to me because she goes very much from like last season she was compelled by the fact that she was almost murdered. This season she's social justice warrior for the sake of being social justice warrior because they needed one in the series. And
she somehow became a reporter.
Because they short-sightedly killed off Ben Urich last season. Oh,
yeah, but does she have a journalism degree?
One would assume not.
Does she have any professional experience writing?
Well, again, one would assume that not by any evidence presented yet in the show.
But she got a job at a major New York paper.
You have to understand she's an awfully good researcher. That's what the premise was of her even being there. And
yeah, you know what?
Fine. So hire her as a researcher. They do that,
Yeah, bingo. She can be a cryptographer. She's not a reporter.
Just telling you what the internal logic of the show was.
No, you can't do that. You can't do that because it doesn't make sense to John Q. Public, and if it doesn't make sense to John Q. Public, it doesn't work.
I was fine with it. I'll allow it. In my world, you can absolutely start hanging around a newspaper, start using their resources to research things, and if you hang around long enough and get to know a story, be familiar with it enough, they'll allow you to write on it. It absolutely works that way.
Sure, let's go with that.
Yeah, you can become the next friggin' Pete Hamill by osmosis.
Well, other than it's not believable that any of that would happen with Karen, what do you have to say about her? Because, like I said, I felt like she was the shoehorned in, voice of morality throughout the show. But she also kept doing this other thing where anytime things got negative for her in terms of like her relationship with Matt, and I'm going somewhere specific with this. she had this very visceral negative reaction to where, like, no, if Matt's not fully in love with me and embracing me whole, then I want nothing to do with him ever on, she would, like, push him away like he was diseased. And it isn't until she does it a few times throughout the season.
I think she did it because he's blind.
But there's a speech, and it actually, other than the hallway scene, if you want a speech that affected me on an emotional level, Winfree, it isn't his mumbled speech that he gives in the cemetery. It's what he tells Karen about losing his wife. That his wife ripped his heart out and drove him crazy.
Oh, yeah, when they're in the diner, and she's kind of complaining, and he goes, what? You got your heart broken. Yeah, love does that. My old lady would bring the pain, man. She wouldn't just break my heart. She'd tear it out, stomp on it, put it in a blender. But, that's what love is, and I will never get to feel that again, ever. You'd be grateful you can feel that.
That affected me personally. That actually changed my perspective on my personal perspective on some things, because I'm like, you know what, that's true. I actually that's a big piece of truth that's written into this show, and we don't need to know any more about my personal life than that.
What's the matter, Harry? Some little filly break your heart? No, it was a girl.
Waka waka. But no, I love that he said that. I think it's absolutely true, and it broke my heart that he, as a character, won't feel that anymore. And I hope that it has an effect on her too, and she allows herself to open up to the possibility of that kind of pain. Because as Shatner tells us in Star Trek, it's that kind of pain that makes us human. Star Trek 5.
There's our William Shatner reference for the evening. We're checking him off the old bingo card here.
Come on. I'm the only one here who saw Star Trek 5, the undiscovered, the Final Frontier.
Yeah, once I saw the first 4, I figured out every other one was a good one, so I avoided the odd-numbered ones and watched the even ones.
Oh, I don't blame you. There's a reason why I used to call Star Trek 6 the apology. But, that is a great line. I don't want to share my pain with you. I need my pain.
Why does God need a starship?
It's not what we're talking about right now, but yes.
Yeah, same movie.
I could do Star Trek 5 references all day long, but we probably shouldn't.
Yeah, we really shouldn't. All right, Pat. So what were your? I
don't understand. So what you're telling me is we're not doing Star Trek references?
Oh boy. Ladies and gentlemen, our resident impressionist, Pat Mullen.
And we can check Christian Slater off the bingo card.
He's not on the bingo card.
Rob, you were attempting to get this podcast back on track?
I was just, Pat, Mark, and I have talked about some of our high points and low points so far. So what were yours? Just for the season in general.
You know what? It's a minor instance in this season, especially compared to his role in last season, but I really enjoyed the involvement of Vincent D'Onofrio once again. No surprises, Wilson Fisk. Him becoming, this time the kingpin of jail was really satisfying to watch, and just gives you an idea into that character as far as they're putting him in a different perspective now. Now he's not on the outside. He's not white collar. He's inside with the murderers and the thieves and the rapists. And guess what? They couldn't do nothing to him, and he climbed on top once again. No real surprise to any of us who know the character. But to the people watching the show, maybe they thought, oh, now he's really going to get humbled. And no, he climbs right back on top from the inside, and it was very cool to watch. So I enjoyed that thoroughly.
It was easily my favorite episode of the entire season.
Yeah, and again, they established that this guy may not look like much, but then he's in the yard on the bench putting up, 405 pounds like it's nothing. A lot of praise for their writing of Frank Castle in this particular instance. The best done since Dolph Lundgren in 1989, and obviously much more current than the dated stuff you'll see come out of that particular instance. So I really give them a lot of credit on that. The fight sequences were very tight this year, at least through the first 8 episodes before they really went full on with, well, it's not going to be just a 1-on-1 fight or a 3-on-1 fight. We're going to have them fight an entire horde of hand ninjas at one time, including Nobu. I really enjoyed those early fight sequences involving the Dogs from Hell and those instances. Rob mentioned the fight that took place through the stairwell, through the elevator, through the hallway, out the door. The action was very well shot. And as somebody who's a fan of Daredevil, the character, the fact that they really based a lot of his fight action in the boxing milieu with his combination punching and movement, that's a very cool tip of the hat to the character that they got right, that a lot of others don't, where he's constantly just doing tumbles and flips and kicks. The first thing Daredevil learned how to fight doing was boxing because of his father, and he's always grounded himself in that. So it's a really cool tip of the hat to people who understand that character, and I enjoyed that.
Especially when it seems like the fight choreography for everyone else is so steeped in Taekwondo as to be off-putting.
Yeah.
Because seriously, Elektra can't throw a punch to save her life.
Well, you know, you asked what some lowlights are on the series, and Elektra would be, you know, step one. And again, I'm with Rob in that I didn't necessarily have a real problem with Elodie Yung as Elektra as an actress. My problem was with how poorly she was written, the fact that her fight sequences looked like crap, and that her presence seemed to just constantly drag the show in a crappy direction. To get back to the positive side of things, while you got, you know, we don't really live blog while we watch these, but we do talk online while we watch these. And you guys saw my excitement when Clancy Brown showed up as Schoonover, Castle's former commanding officer. And I think Clancy Brown has a good chance of stealing virtually any scene he's in anything. And I thought he did here too.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Yeah.
Be prepared for a stupid answer, but go ahead.
Is he the blacksmith?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That is very explicitly expounded upon in episode 12 or 13 when Frank, you know, shoots him in the head.
Yeah, it's 12.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I thought so. Wanted to make sure because I was reading a summary of it to kind of refresh myself for tonight's podcast, and it wasn't explicitly stated. And I'm like, did I fucking miss something here? Because I thought he was the blacksmith. All right, I'm good.
No, that was your whatever summary you're reading, not adequately explaining things.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was the blacksmith. I thought his scenes in the courtroom were good, but because it's Clancy Brown, you're waiting for where the turn comes in.
Yeah.
And when Karen goes to his home to kind of talk to him further, that's when it's got a really stupid part of that scene where she looks at the picture and recognizes one of the corpses from the shipyard in the picture, which would cause her to have some kind of explicitly crazy memory, especially when the guy looked nothing like he did in the picture. That just kind of annoyed me, but I got through it because Clancy Brown's menacing presence, voice, tone is just awesome. And the exchange between him and Frank was pretty great after Frank saves Karen from him. And then what I like further is that it really sets up part of the Punisher, where the Punisher is known for having this incredible arsenal. He doesn't really possess that yet in the show, but after stumbling onto the blacksmith's shed where he kept all his toys, which makes sense that he would have, being, you know, involved heavily in the U.S. military, now you start to see some of the development of that character. In a lot of ways, I felt like the first half of this season was a backdoor pilot for a Netflix Punisher series. The second half of this season was a backdoor pilot for either a standalone Elektra series or a series based completely around Daredevil and Elektra as a unit. I think one was very strong, and I think one was very weak. And unfortunately, as a whole, I think it weakened the Daredevil lead character and made him extremely one-dimensional and really just kind of a plot device in a lot of ways to try to establish these new characters without developing him any further And as a result, he kind of gets lost in the shuffle in his own series, which is a terrible thing from a writing perspective.
I understand what they were trying to do with Matt Murdock here. What they were going for was to show him, as this superhero kind of being pulled in different directions by different elements that could go into being a hero like that. Do you violently murder people? I mean, I understand kind of what they were attempting to do. Unfortunately, they didn't execute it as nicely as they needed to, and I think you're right. He becomes kind of, instead of a force that is acting, he is a force that is acted upon for the vast majority of this season, and that's a big step backwards for the character who was so proactive in the first season.
I saw a lot of reviews that said that he really does take a backseat in his own series. So there's all this other stuff. But here's what I kept thinking about once the hand became a major part of the storytelling. And that is that I think by virtue of putting the hand in there, one, obviously they can get to Elektra. But two, I also felt like this was the prologue to the Iron Fist series that's coming out with, the character's name is Danny Rand. But I can't remember the actor who they got to play him. They just casted this.
Yeah, probably better not to.
He looks fine. Can we mention how hilarious it is that people were complaining about Iron Fist being cast as a Caucasian?
Are you serious?
No.
Yeah.
Yes. This is how stupid the general populace is when it comes to crap like this. They announced the guy who's going to be playing Danny Rand. He is best known at this point for being someone in Game of Thrones. I don't remember. I don't care. The books are better, so I don't watch the show. But he's in that show. That's his big, that's what he's most known for. But he's a Caucasian guy. He's got the right kind of, curly blonde hair that I think kind of goes into the character. I mean, he looks the part. Just, put up a picture of him next to Rand without the costume, and he looks right.
Listen, isn't Danny Rand like some rich guy who ends up falls into this world?
Yes, he's a rich, white guy who learns kung fu.
Super.
And the fact that there were people who know so little about the intellectual property that, you're whitewashing him, amused me to no end. It's like, no, you're a bunch of idiots.
Hey, remember when you were racist if you said Johnny Storm as a black person was wrong?
Dude, I had a friend of mine's wife went off on me for like a solid 5 minutes about how I'm racist because I objected to. I wasn't even as bad as you guys. I didn't object to a black Johnny Storm. I said maybe him and his sister should be the same race. Oh, they could be adopted, you racist. All right.
They could be, but why? At that point, you're just writing crap for the sake of diversity to try to appeal to a wider focus group, and all you've done is weaken your property. Stupid.
So back to Danny Rand. I felt like, it's funny. We're gonna talk a week from tonight about Batman v Superman, and the biggest complaint about the movie, other than it doesn't make any sense, most of it, the critics.
Who'd have thought a Zack Snyder movie that doesn't make sense?
All right, is that
I've defended Zack Snyder on occasion.
They overstuffed the sausage. That the movie is serving too many masters, and it doesn't do any one thing well enough because it's trying to do too many things. And that may be the biggest problem I have with this season of Daredevil, in that it's, you have to deal with the Punisher, you have to deal with the strained relationships between our main three characters, Karen, Matt Murdock, and Foggy. Then you have Elektra, then you have the Hand, then you have the Chase, and alongside of this, they're trying to world build for Iron Fist, and I don't think it does any of those things other than the Punisher stuff very well.
I think the interplay between the three main characters is still solid enough.
No, you're right. That I should have included that as well.
But yeah, anything with the Hand, the Chase, the supernatural elements. Here's Nobu for no reason. Just like, no. I mean, I understand partially the scene that he has with Madame Gao because she currently possesses the Iron Fist and is actually going to be relevant. but the rest of it just you're pulling it in too many different directions, and you're pulling it in directions that the show doesn't have a handle on. I'm fine with mysticism in both television and comic book properties, whether they overlap or not. I mean, I'm fine with that. I don't think any of us here have a problem with it. I find Doctor Strange to generally be awesome. But there's such a massive, I think Pat hit it right when he said identity crisis, when this show tries to incorporate the mysticism and the magic and the otherworldly stuff, that it's jarring to the viewer. At least it was to me. All right. I think that's just about everything. Mark, final thoughts?
Loved the first 3 episodes, then got bored / confused / I was 6 until Punisher goes to no, the courtroom stuff I liked as well. I thought that was a lot of fun stuff, especially Foggy finally growing a set of balls and being a lawyer. I thought that was good stuff. And then to me the show hits its climax when the Punisher goes to prison. And then after that, all I cared about was him and the blacksmith, and everything else to me sort of fell by the wayside. Though I will give the show props for finally having Daredevil, Matt Murdock, having the balls to tell Karen that he is Daredevil and leaving it there. I did enjoy that. So overall, I would give this season if I'm being harsh, I would say it's a C. If I'm being overly optimistic, I would give it a B-.
For those of you who don't know, just doing a group chat that we share with a few other people from the Casual Heroes, we kind of got talking with Mark about Mark being, I believe the phrase was relentlessly optimistic.
Yes, that was the phrase, yes.
So occasionally he might bring that up.
Occasionally, here or there.
All right, Pat, what do you got? What are your final thoughts on this one? And just as a brief aside, I believe they're doing Luke Cage next.
Yeah, in September.
So I know you disliked Jessica Jones, and that was that's fine. Mark and I have reviewed that, strengths and negatives and whatnot. Are you? After this one, we've got, 3 seasons of television from basically this core group of people who are going to be putting together the world that's going to be, the Netflix Marvel group. Are you excited at all for what's, coming up ahead in this? And, just kind of final thoughts on this season in particular.
As far as this season, I have to say I enjoyed it more than the first season, despite having the same problem where by the last 3 episodes, this was almost unwatchable to me. Had it not been for the Punisher stuff, it probably would have been unwatchable. So I have to slightly say I favored this season above an abysmal last season, in my opinion. Am I looking forward to Luke Cage? For reasons I can't explain, yes. I think that the guy they cast in the part of Cage is pretty good. He was one of the only things I liked about Jessica Jones, aside from David Tennant. And I feel like his role in that show was kind of if they had explored him a little bit more, maybe I would have liked the show more, but I understood they were trying to just kind of get you somewhat interested in him so that when they had him on his own show, which they had been planning all along, you would really look forward to that, and they hadn't given away too much already. So I don't know why, but I'm looking forward to Luke Cage. I felt like, excluding Jessica Jones because it was terrible in every facet possible, Daredevil Season 1 sucked. Daredevil Season 2 didn't suck as much. So I feel like this one, maybe there's a precedent where they can get better with each passing show or season of a show. So I'm cautiously optimistic that I can put Luke Cage in like that C class where it's not terrible, but it's not great. And I'd be okay with that.
And real quick, are you looking forward to Iron Fist at all?
No.
no faith in them to do that character appropriately?
I love the character. I think when done right, he's awesome. I saw the person they cast as him, and no.
All right, fair enough. All right. Personally, again, I feel this season has one of the same problems that the first one did. It starts out so strong, and it just seems like it's front-loaded. That by the time you actually get to the finish, it's more of a stumble across, more of a whimper than a bang type of thing. And
Jessica Jones remains the undisputed champion.
I'm not having that debate with you again.
You like Jessica Jones.
I did, but I didn't rate it the same way you did, and I'm not having that debate with you again.
Okay. There's no debate. Jessica Jones is by far the superior show.
And when we get around to season 2, we can revisit it. At the moment, it's distinctly and utterly irrelevant.
Okay.
Except for the fact that even with superpowers, I don't believe Kristen Ritter is capable of landing a solid punch.
Neither is Shane McMahon. Who the fuck cares?
Well, there's a big reason I don't care about him either.
Get on with it.
Oh,
Kristen
so you
Ritter
get to detour.
But she's not good at anything.
She probably did a blowjob.
I disagree. She plays damaged very well, probably because she is. But
I only thought he disagreed that she probably gives a different blowjob. I'm like, really? I'd like to hear your perspective on this.
I have no
Just
perspective
thin lips.
on that. I fail to see the relevance.
Oh, please move on. Please.
All right. Last thing up.
No.
I'm aware of the mechanics at play. I fail to
Stay
see.
on target. Stay on target.
Star Wars
That's what
reference
she said.
and
Burn!
bingo. All right. I had one minor complaint about the close of this season. You made a big deal out of showing the Punisher get that minigun, and you never let him shoot it. And I was disappointed in that.
Wow. They got to say something for either the Punisher series or the next season of Daredevil.
I'm just saying, when that army of ninjas is charging at them across the rooftop, I really wanted him to cut loose with that thing. And because I know the type of damage one of those things can cause, and just mow those little medieval suckers into next week.
Hey, I'm going to look it up, but did they say for certain that they're coming back with a Daredevil season 3, or is that not a thing yet?
Not yet.
It has not been announced. I think, again, because we got Luke Cage and then Iron Fist coming up, and those two should lead into their Defenders.
Can I just say how mad I am that they're actually calling this show The Defenders?
Well, because yes, by all means, you're a bit of a purist when it comes to that, but I imagine a lot of people aren't aware of the source material kind of infractions they're making. So by all means, educate the populace here, Pat.
It's silly because here's the thing with the Defenders. The Defenders were the non-team, okay, that were put together when circumstances beyond their control basically forced them to come together and team up. And the original Defenders were the Hulk, who's obviously right now tied up in the Avengers franchises, Doctor Strange, who will be making his cinematic debut in November, I believe, and the Submariner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your original team of Defenders. And eventually they would expand into an actual team with other members like Nighthawk, Valkyrie, Beast would show up for a little while as a Defender. And, they were the non-team of kind of oddball, land of misfit toy characters, but none of them were Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, street-level heroes in the urban environment. Now, had you called this Heroes for Hire, which was the long-running series that featured Luke Cage and Iron Fist, had you called it Secret Warriors, which was a type of team that Nick Fury put together but could be applicable to this, the Defenders is like the least fittable kind of team to this thing. Nobody's involved. Not even come up with a different name for it, and you're fine. But it's silly to call it the Defenders. And second of all, like, do you understand that you could actually use the Hulk to start a Defenders movie property too, but outside of the Avengers, because he's an A-list hero in that regard, and you could get higher interest in heroes that aren't on that level, like a Doctor Strange or a Submariner or background players like Valkyrie and Nighthawk?
They should have called them the West Coast Avengers.
Even though they're
also not applicable.
East Coast.
How about Excalibur?
They're not even in England.
Yeah, no, Excalibur was the British team.
Wait, I can do this.
Sure, go ahead.
New Warriors.
How about Power Pack?
How about
They're not really kids.
I was really hoping you'd go with like Great Lakes Avengers.
I forgot about
Alpha
that.
Flight.
I was gonna do that one next. God damn it.
Even though none of them are Canadian.
The Runaways.
Oh no, they suck. Actually, that's applicable then.
The Sinister Six.
They also suck. So good. Keep going.
All right.
No, they suck, but that's Sony owns them.
Let's see. The Dark Avengers.
Only if we get
Is that because of Luke Cage?
Norman Osborn.
Boo, bad, boo. We're getting silly. End this podcast.
Yep. I would accept the Dark Avengers only if it leads to the Siege storyline because I want to see the Sentry.
I would accept Dark Avengers if it included Luke Cage, the Falcon, Black Panther, and Nick Fury.
Boo!
It's funny because their skin's of a different chemical composition so as to avoid sunburn.
Because Danny Rand isn't white.
I have up the entire list now of teams in Marvel.
Then okay, let's not go down that road.
How about the Action Pack? Huh?
That was not a team. That was the Saturday night lineup on WPIX in the mid to late 90s that featured Hercules and Xena.
Bad Girls Incorporated.
For those of you who don't know, Mark could go down that entire list and Pat could, off the top of his head, tell you why all of them were or were not applicable.
Big Hero 6.
Already,
I'm pretty sure they did that one
another
already.
Property.
Oh, damn it. The Brotherhood of Evil.
You have kids and you won't shut up about animated movies and you didn't see Big Hero 6?
I saw Big Hero 6. I took my daughter to it.
Ah, okay. Yeah, same
Here we
property.
go.
That's that property.
Mark, I've got one for you that I would not argue at all. The Chaste.
There you go.
Do you know why I would not argue with that, Mark?
Why?
It has nothing to do with the fact that Stick and Daredevil are actually members of the Chaste. It's the fact that the name is the Chaste.
How about the Crusaders?
Are they fighting Muslims in the Holy Land?
It's a group of fictional characters appearing in American comic books published by Marvel Comics. The characters first appeared in The Invaders, March 1977, and were created by Roy Thomas, Jack Kirby, and Frank Robbins. And it looks like the members were Captain Wings, Dynamite, Ghost Girl, the Spirit of 76, Thunder Fist, and Tommy Lightning.
Okay, that name could be co-opted for this one then.
Are we done with this bit, or should I keep going?
Well, I think if we go for the next 15 minutes, it might be funny again.
So the Family Guy method of comedy?
I hate Seth MacFarlane so much. He's just not funny. All right. No, I do think that is going to wrap us up here.
How about the Fallen Angels?
Christopher Daniels is involved?
Vanisher, Gomi, Ariel, Chance, Sunspot, Siren, Multiple Man, Boom Boom, Moon Boy, Devil Dinosaur, and Warlock.
I'll read anything involving Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur. So
there you go.
All right. Yeah, that's going to wrap us up here this evening. We had our final thoughts on it. I'd agree kind of with Mark's assessment. It's when this show gets it right, it really, really is on a different level of playing field from pretty much anything on broadcast television.
Except for the People versus OJ.
People versus OJ is pedantic, drawn out, and everyone knows the ending.
I don't know the ending. He might get convicted. You never know.
Mark, I'm begging you. Don't be that stupid. I fundamentally believe the drama and the tension and the conflict of a courtroom drama entirely revolves around the verdict.
I have to wonder if people listen to this show going, how easily we can get distracted by nonsense.
And how is there any sort of conflict or drama or tension in a series where you already know the outcome?
There was a team called SURF, but it's an acronym. SURF. What's that stand for? Speeded Up Robust Features.
Okay. Pat, what do you got to plug?
not a whole lot, but as always, you can hear me on the new and exciting, just over 2-month-old show on Gavin Napier's channel that we co-op here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, Bunkhouse Stampede Radio, that we air every Thursday at 11 p.m. We may start airing earlier, but as of right now, we air live Thursdays at 11 p.m. We'll talk about all this week's pertinent wrestling news, the shaping of the WrestleMania card. As always, we will have this day in wrestling history, and our spotlight this week falls on the excellence of elocution, beautiful Bobby Eaton.
Wasn't that an ironic nickname for him? Yeah. All right. No, clearly he was. He had no need for his string of managers. Absolutely none. Mark, what do you got to plug? Because I don't feel like doing it tonight.
Okay. Well, tomorrow night we'll be doing the podcast I have been promoting since January, in defense of Man of Steel. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it now. Just know that I will be presenting my argument for why Man of Steel is an important movie that people should watch. What's good about it, not necessarily doing a film review, but looking at a particular aspect that I think is often overlooked and underappreciated. So that's what we'll be doing tomorrow night. Friday, Gavin will be countering with his case against Man of Steel, which is basically a deconstruction of the movie. On Tuesday, the 29th, Metal Hammer of Doom on its new night, we'll be reviewing Amon Amarth, John's Viking, new album. On Wednesday, I will be drunk, and Robert Winfree will have to drag me through a review of what apparently is a terrible movie, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I will sober up.
I anticipate hating that movie pretty much from top to bottom, with the lone exception of Henry Cavill as Superman, who does a great job as that character so far.
Hey, despite all the negative reviews, you know that the one common positive in all of them is Ben Affleck as Batman?
I am prepared to be the only person standing on top of that hill going, "You're all idiots," if that's how I feel about it. You know
who said from the get-go that the only positive about this movie was likely to be Cavill as Superman and Affleck as Batman?
Wasn't that you?
It was me.
You're so smart, Pat. You're a good boy.
I am so smart.
Really?
I am so smart. SMRT.
The fact that his house is burning in the background of that scene makes it even better.
Thursday, the 31st, Long Road to Ruin is back. We'll be looking at the Dark Knight animated movies. Baby Metal comes out April 1st. I will be on a plane to Dallas. When we come back, we'll be reviewing the new Baby Metal on Tuesday, April 5th. And that's it for that week. No movie reviews again until I sober up. No, until The Jungle Book comes out, which only I and Robert Winfree will be seeing.
Not true. I saw the trailer and I actually liked it.
Oh, good.
Really?
Yeah, I found it interesting. I'm curious how it's going to go down. My curiosity is piqued. I would like to watch it. It's got to be better than the '97 version.
The 97 version at least had the greatness of Cary Elwes hamming it up as the villain.
But I don't. Yeah, and I didn't like that casting. However, I'm also excited about the new Tarzan movie.
Oh God, are you prepared to be just like disappointed on every conceivable level?
Yes, but that's okay because I also saw the Christopher Lambert Tarzan.
Okay, then your threshold for acceptable as far as a Tarzan movie is just better than that.
Yeah, the best Tarzan movie ever was Brendan Fraser as George of the Jungle.
That's probably true. All things considered. All right. Mark already mentioned tomorrow night he and I are going to do an In Defense of Man of Steel podcast because I feel like insulting everyone who has unwarranted criticisms of that movie. My thing with that is really simple. There are plenty of flaws with that movie to point out. You don't need to manufacture them. And yet, so many people did. And I'll talk about that tomorrow night at length with Mark. The only movie that would be coming out between Jungle Book and Man of Steel is, I think, Hardcore Henry, and I'm not going to put myself through that. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not. Mark's not. But we'll be back for Jungle Book, and that will kind of dovetail into the major release season. Okay, there is no 411 Ground and Pound radio show this week because there is no show to review or preview, and if we do one, it would only be talking about about New York finally pulling its collective head out of its ass and legalizing the sport of mixed martial arts.
That reminds me. We do have a new Every Joe podcast. It'll be up this Saturday since we have nothing else going on. I don't think we have a streaming boy in the pipeline. So the new Every Joe podcast will be on Saturday at 9 o'clock. It'll be titled GOP Thunderdome.
Okay, then. So again, listening to that state legislature just made my head hurt. Really? These are our elected representatives, not me. I don't live in New York, so those people have no say over what I do in any meaningful capacity whatsoever, but the knowledge that same discussion was probably had and is going on about other topics, that same level of incompetence in my state legislature, just makes my head hurt. So beyond that, not this Saturday, but it's a couple of weeks before the next event. It's April the 10th, I think, is the next one. It's a card that Mark Radulich put together. The top 3 fights are heavyweights. Yeah, I am not looking forward to that one.
Yep, Radulich in Croatia is heavyweights.
It's in Croatia, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is Crow Cop fighting?
No, he retired.
Then what's the point?
They like Croatia.
And
hey, come on, Junior Dos Santos is going to fight Ben Rothwell in the main event.
So, like, they got legalized just in time in New York for them to never run a show in this country again.
They'll be in New York by the end of the year. It's going to take them another, 200 days to get a set of rules in place and regulations and start the licensing process and everything.
There will be a UFC pay-per-view in September at Madison Square Garden.
Well, did Governor Cuomo give the okay yet?
No. The governor has not yet signed it into law. I imagine he will. Well, 2 things. I imagine he will, and even if he doesn't, the vote was by such a wide enough margin that they can override him and get it into law anyway.
No, he's the governor. You can't override the governor.
Really? Your state's set up that way?
Yep.
Huh. Well, again, I imagine he'll sign it. I can't think of a reason why he wouldn't. Well, on the contrary, I can think of a reason he wouldn't. It would involve millions of reasons being deposited into his bank account by a certain union, specifically the culinary union. But beyond that,
I'm sure it'll be fine.
That is theoretically the last hurdle to overcome. All right, that's it. I'm not proud. I don't really have anything else to plug or talk about. So, Pat, thanks for being here for this. You added something new to the dynamic that Mark and I have going on here, and I like talking to you. It's been far too long since you and I were on a show together.
I agree. Well, now that my movie taste seems to be coming into play more in the theaters, we may have to do a few more of these, Rob.
Anytime Mark decides he's got something else or isn't able to make a show, I'll hit you up.
Love it.
All right, Mark, thank you for being here as always, for giving us a home to do crap like this to fill my lonely evenings. I appreciate it.
I just got under the $20 check in the mail, so the pleasure was all mine.
Oh, I got a $32 check in the mail that the post office partially destroyed. I'm a little bit pissed at them right now.
I didn't get any checks in the mail.
Actually, I have to see if my bank will accept it. It's a clean tear. I just got to tape it up, and I hope my bank will accept it. All right. Anyway, on that note, we're done, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Watch Daredevil Season 2. There are certainly worse things you could watch.
Like Jessica Jones.
Yeah. Many of them are on broadcast television right now. Seriously, look at Fox's fall lineup. If that doesn't make you... People versus OJ is crap.
Your crap. Play the theme music.
Make America great again.
Can't think of a better way to go out than that. Thanks, everybody. Mark and I are back next week reviewing Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and I will verbally eviscerate, flay, repurpose the entirety of Jesse Eisenberg. Because, God, I hate him. Sorry, I don't hate him that much. But seriously, worst possible choice you could have made for Lex Luthor outside of me. And even I would have done better. See you next week, everybody. Thanks for being here.
We need some money. Talking about money, money, money. We need some money.